Hey folks, what's up? Welcome back to another Poem Master video, and it's the end of the month again. I mean, close to the end of the month. We're, what, a week away from the end of the month? Also my birthday, by the way. Um, but yeah, means we could probably, go over this month's tier list, right? So people get mad again, right? I mean, everyone seems pretty happy recently, past few days, so let's get some people mad. All right, so what we're gonna do this time is a bit different because last time you guys didn't really like that. Last one, although I completely stand by the a lot of the rankings that people were mad about. However, it did make me think that maybe like that wasn't like the best like forum because like when we look at like roles in this games, tech, supports, strikers, they're not like exactly always in that mold, right? So I thought maybe we'll try this new format a bit and let me know, what you guys prefer. If you guys prefer this new format or the old just, a tier list for techs, tier list for strikers, tier list for supports, or this, which is, and here's what it is: a tier list for damage dealers, units who are primarily focused for using for used for damage. One for utility, right? Whether it be supports, buffers, debuffers, status units, weather units, right? Tanks, this and that, right? Just the units that aren't primarily used for damage. Again, doesn't mean they can't do it, but are primarily used for utility reasons. And then a third tier list, which is a hybrid, stuff like a Steven, right? Steven, if you put him into a damage dealer tier list, not that great, right? His damage, not fantastic. If you put him into a utility tier list, his utility is just okay, right? Nothing crazy. But if you in a hybrid sense, he's fantastic, right? Because does solid damage and fantastic utility. That's why there's going to be also, again, a hybrid tier list where we go over units that do a bit of both. Like Lopunny as well. Fantastic damage dealer. Also got the potions, got the speed buffs for your whole team, defense buffs for your whole team, right? Supports a striker. So we're, again, going to do 3 lists based on what they actually do and not what the game says it does, right? So again, 1 damage healer, 1 for utility, and then 1 for hybrid units, right? So anyways, yeah, again, shout out to the folks who worked on this with me. Again, tier list, obviously, subjective. I don't agree with this tier list 100% because, again, like I mentioned before, I work with people who I know. It's not, these aren't just random people. These are people who definitely know the game very, very well. Maybe even better than myself, right, sometimes, or have a much, I guess, better, perspective on these things, right? So, yeah, shout outs to them, Ropal, Runner, Donson, and Joe, right? So, yeah, let's get into this then. Let's get into this. So as you can see, again, in the damage list, most of them are still strikers. Again, there are some tech units sprinkled in here and there, like Serena, right? I mean, she could lower attack, she could confuse, but again, she's mostly used for damage. And also one more rule is that we don't put a unit in 2 different lists unless they're in the absolute top tier, right? So you will be seeing Swampert in the, damage tier list, and you'll be seeing Swampert in the, utility or I think it was hybrid tier list because Swampert's top tier in both, right? But you won't be seeing Aegislash in the hybrid tier list, and also seeing Aegislash in the damage dealer tier list because, again, for units that fit in both, we're just going for only the top tiers. Nothing else, right? So anyways, let's get into this then. So as usual, let's start with 1 in each tier, right? Since we already talked about Swampert, let's just do it, right? Swampert, obviously. So Swampert, I think, is the fourth or 5th highest sync nuke in the whole game, for 1, which is fantastic. And Swampert's Muddy Water does around the same damage as a sun boosted blast burn from Red's Charizard, which is really strong, right? So obviously Swampert, no question, top tier, right? So yeah, that's Swampert. For the above average damage dealers, right? you know what? I guess I named this like slightly unruly, but it's just like sub top tier, right? So after that, I'd say, I guess a good example of that would be Gardevoir, right? Gardevoir, you know, great fairy type damage, obviously with Moonblots. Again, it's not like as strong as some of the absolute top tiers, but still very, 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 very powerful in terms of damage, right? She does have some downsides, unfortunately. Her speed, move gauge management being one, which is not fun. But her damage is fantastic, so there's that. Moving on. Oh, although I do want to say, a lot of people have been saying, oh, Gardevoir's like the fairy type red. I don't know about that. Red does, and I love Gardevoir, right? I mean, I EX my Gardevoir, but like Gardevoir's damage is not there. Red does a lot more, or like even Swampert, right? Or Palkia. Like Gardevoir again, fantastic damage, not exactly there yet. Anyways, moving on to the, I guess, like, sort of average level of damage healers. We could probably throw in, I guess Houndoom could be a good example of that, right? Put Houndoom in there. Houndoom could do fantastic damage by itself, right? Basically, like, like the max damage Houndoom could do, like, easily in the levels of like the next tier, right? However, the setup is slightly wonky, so your team comp could take some major hits here and there because you need to status the opponent as well as either flinch, confuse, trap them, right? And that does limit your options if you're trying to run like some extremely hyper offensive team comps, right? You could still put Houndoom in there, right? You could still put Houndoom into hyper offensive team comps. However, Houndoom itself, the damage is gonna take a pretty big, whack, right? Which is not fun. Moving on, we got someone in slightly below average. I guess Jigglypuff could be a good example of that. I guess Jigglypuff did get a bit better, I'd say. With Popplio, because Popplio helps, right? Popplio is really great partner for Jigglypuff. But yeah, just overall, Jigglypuff's damage is slightly inconsistent, right? Jigglypuff is pretty slow. Again, Team Cloud did get better, so there's definitely that, right? Can't say much bad about that, but yeah, it is what it is. It doesn't have an EX, so it's still good. It's still good. Anyways, moving on to like a below average striker, probably something like Dugong, maybe Dugong. Soul damage. It's just not anything crazy, right? Just not anything crazy. The extra speed debuff is cool, I guess, but setup is also kind of weird, right? But outside of that, it's okay. It's solid, right? Moving on, better gridless damage healers. Something like a Chandelure, maybe. Chandelure does okay-ish damage, but again, no grid. You don't get move gauge refreshes. You don't have anything else to really help its damage. All that stuff. It just does okay-ish damage, right? And then last here, the worst gridless damage healers. Slacking, probably the worst unit in the game overall, right? Normal type, no super effective, has recoil with nothing to really save it from, and even with that being said, damage isn't even fantastic anyways, right? So yeah, something like that. Let's just start this off by filling up the last two tiers. Let's just get the the not really important units out of the way. Slowrock, probably on the worst gridless damage healers, does decent damage on sync, but outside of that, does like nothing. What else? Seabold, maybe, I don't know. Seabold could be in like between these two, but honestly, who really cares? It gets screwed over by like a 2-gauge move, but I mean, it is water type, so it does get rain, which is cool. Has regen, has crit buffs, all that. A method of eventually getting crit buffs, so that's cool, I guess. Let's see what else. Roserai's definitely in the better gridless damage healers, probably the best one of all the gridless damage healers, so that's cool, I guess. Although this isn't like exclusively gridless damage dealers, just some of the better ones, I guess, because there are like some gridless damage dealers that could be in like the below average tier, maybe, right? For example, Mewtwo, right? Mewtwo definitely could be in the below average tier, right? Because like she's like a Miss Magius if Miss Magius if Miss Magius had like dual type coverage and wasn't like not great, right? So it's pretty comparable, right? Moving on, we got what else? Toucan's not great. Does okay damage on sync move. Pupil's is terrible. Peck is the only other option, which is bad. Beedrill's not good. Avalog's a close. Actually, no. You know what? Avalog's not close to Slacking. Slacking's much worse. Mudstill's not great. It does have a 3-gauge move, which is better than like a lot of these in here, I guess. But I don't think it's good enough to be a comparable to like Roserade. Conkeldur's okay-ish, I guess. It's incredibly slow, not good. What else we got? Pinsir, it has a 1-gauge spam, but it really, in this day and age, there's so much better units that have better 1-gauge moves. Tyranitar's just not good. The AoE Rock Slide is bad, right? Sylveon's, oh my god. Okay, Sylveon, Avalog, competing for the second worst in the game. Molane's okay, I guess. I don't know. Molane's kind of in like the Mudstill territory, though. Whatever. It's okay, I guess. Arbok's fine-ish for a gridless striker. Machamp could do okay-ish damage. Very slow. What else? I think that's most of them. If I miss anyone, I'll put them back. Scolebeat's okay. And speaking of, Solgaleo also could be in the below average category. It's just very inconsistent in terms of its damage. Sunsteel Strike is a good move though. Pervious is nice to have, I guess. Good stats overall, right? Good stats overall. Yeah, it needs a grid to be better though. Anyways, which it probably will get a good one, hopefully, because all the ones that we've been getting so far are very, very good. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about, I don't know. Speaking of legendaries that got grids, Rayquaza, fantastic, right? Definitely top 3 dragons in the game right now, right? Obviously Dragonite's probably the best one at the moment, but outside of the Dragonite, Rayquaza could be the second best. Great argument for Rayquaza being the second best, right? Fantastic team comps, incredible damage, great stats overall, right? Yeah, they gave us another top tier damage healer for free, which is cool. Anyways, speaking of, yeah, Dragonite's obviously in here as well. And speaking of Dragon types, Kamo could still be in here, I guess. Kamo is kind of borderline though. Kamo's kid is just not great for the modern, I guess, meta, right, at the moment. It is really slow. The build-up is slow, right, because, a lot of the battles right now at Master Mode, you want to get that thing over fast, right? The longer you stay in the Master Mode, the harder it becomes. And again, Kamo is more so for, like, longer battles, which is not very great for Kamo in this case. Again, AoE split damage, not fun. Although if you do EX Kamo, if you could hopefully clear the sides with your first EX sync move, then obviously Clang Skills, not AoE anymore, much better, right? In terms of usage, right? But yeah, I don't know. We'll keep it here. We'll keep it here for now. Moving on. Pidgeot's still really good, obviously. Second highest damaging flying type, right? So that's nice. Really good defenses for a striker, which is cool. It could survive, pretty well. Good speed. all that stuff. A bit slow, to get going. But once you do get it going, I know it does have some weird team comp issues. But if you run it with like a Togekiss, that would actually could be potentially a pretty nice team combo, honestly, right? So Pidgeot's fine. Well, speaking of, flying type damage dealers, Gyarados, more damage than Blue. Does have a bit wonkier team comps than Blue though, I'd have to say, but in terms of damage wise, obviously much better. So can't really move him lower. Moving on. Let's see. What should talk about next? I don't know. Nate, because why not talk about Nate? Nate's definitely below average. Does have the EX, AoE sync nuke with inertia, which is good, I guess. Like outside of that, the early release damage is not fantastic. Fly is not a good move. All the stats are just bad overall, right? But again, as a secondary striker, sync nuker, it's had some uses, I guess, right? Moving on. Let's see. In that same vein, Guzma got better with the, obviously, EX. I mean, everyone gets better with an EX. Okay, almost everyone. But Guzma did get an EX. It helped him. Not too much, though. He's still basically Nate, but bug type and better defenses, right? So there's Guzma. What else we got? Speaking of secondary damage dealers, Pheromosa. Obviously, much, much better secondary damage dealer than Nate or Guzma. Extremely fast, right? The best, unit you could run in Hail right now. Alongside Ice Steven. Obviously, Blizzard, big damage. It's not bad as a bug type damage dealer, but obviously, most time you want to use it as a, ice type damage dealer instead. Cause you could run it as a decent Balvilla unit, because she gets offensive buffs without using an EMP, which is nice. Yeah, she's good, I guess. Anyways, moving on. Are there any other secondary damage dealers that we could talk about? Oh, Zacian. Zacian's a very, very good one, right? Zacian does take a while to get set up, though, in terms of damage-wise, because you do need the opponent's sync, which kind of sucks. But, again, regardless, once they do, really good damage, very fast, right? Although Zacian is probably borderline at this point, but also very good for Balvilla, so there's that as well. So, that's cool. Moving on, let's see, are there any other secondary damage dealers? More Pekko, I guess, right? Strongest sync nuke of the game, right? By far, right? Like, number 2 isn't even close. Once you have, again, super preparation up, right? And I think has the strongest 2-gauge move in the game as well. Like, don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but it's either, like, the strongest or second or, something like that. But yeah, Power Trip is incredibly broken. Does as much damage as like some 4-gauge moves in this game, right? Some of the top 3-gauge moves, top tier 3-gauge moves in the game, obviously. Incredibly powerful, super fast as well, right? Gets its own speed buffs, all that stuff. You get gradual heals if you want, right? But yeah, very, very powerful, obviously. Fantastic Villa unit as well, on top of that. Any other secondary damage dealers? Oh, I forgot about you. Yeah, you're bad. Rampardos does a lot of damage on one hit and then dies. Alright, that's my analysis on Rampardos. Sharpedo. Sharpedo is really good. Great, secondary damage dealer. It did get its spot taken, by Palkia on the most optimal Rain team, though, unfortunately. But, it's still good regardless. Incredibly fast. Really, really great damage. Has good, defense debuffs that helps with that as well. Your whole team, if you are running another physical unit, right? So Sharpedo, really, really good there. Anything else for secondary damage dealers? I mean, there's some here, but some are like kind of multi-uses, I guess. Mightyena, right? Spearon's fantastic. Has Carry On, which is nice. Its damage isn't crazy, but it's just such a great fit for a secondary damage dealer that we're gonna put it up there. All right, moving on. From that, let's get to some, I guess, primary damage dealers. I guess there's some more secondary damage dealers, but let's just move on. Primary damage dealers, I guess. Let's see. Charizard. Leon's Charizard, right? Very, very good, obviously. Has a team buff, which is fantastic. Outside of the gimmick units, I think Leon's Inferno does the highest damage in the game, right? By a solid amount too, right? Actually, by quite a bit, right? Like if you compare it to like the next best, I think it's like 200k more or something, which is a lot, right? Leon's Inferno, obviously. Also get the burns as well, which is cool. Got type coverage with ground and flying. So again, obviously very, very powerful. Speaking of Charizards, the other Charizard also really, really good. Big damage. That's about it. Big damage. Which is good. Which is what you want to damage your list, right? Big damage. Speaking of big damage, Zekrom. Very, very big damage. Sometimes could have some speed issues, but with the, Hilbert grid, got much, much better, right, in terms of team composition and stuff. Hilbert, Volkner, Zekrom, obviously fantastic team comp over there. Also in that team comp, you don't have to tank with Hilbert, which is also fantastic as well. But yeah, very, very big damage. But nothing else much, though. Moving on. Let's see. Other big damage. Got Palkia. On one of the strongest, top tier teams in the game. On the Rain, Blastoise, Mega Swampert, and Palkia team, obviously. Hydro Pump does as much as the Rain, Muddy Waters, or Sun Blast Burns, right? Which is obviously very, very good. Moving on, let's see. Volcarona, big damage. Could potentially run as a secondary striker, right? Again, Volcarona team comp does need some tinkering, though, right? If you do want to do that, but you could definitely do that, right? Rejuvenate's really nice, all that stuff. Again, big Hyper Beam boy. Pretty straightforward. Moving on, we got, let's see. Serena. Let's talk about it. Serena. Again, much more of a damage dealer than a utility unit, right? I mean, its utility is just AoE confusion and attack down, which is not very good, right? I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not anything fantastic either. But great damage dealer, great secondary damage dealer, right? Power Whip, underrated, honestly, in terms of damage wise, right? Power Whip could do some serious damage, and then obviously you got a fantastic Sync Nuke. A lot of people, I think, the mindset on using Serena is kind of off, right? Because I think the mindset of using Serena is like a lot of people think, oh, Serena, way too much setup, which is true. A lot of incredible amounts of setup, but you don't have to get it to like max damage, which obviously if it's not max damage, you're not going to get as much output from it. But like if you don't, you can still run her as like a solid secondary damage dealer, right? Regardless. Moving on. Zipstrika. AoE Sync Nuke with inertia is fantastic with guaranteed crit on the AoE Sync Nuke, which is kind of important because if you don't guarantee crit on your AoE Sync Nukes, that's like a 20% chance on each of your opponents to miss your crit, which is not great. But yeah, the guaranteed crit Sync Nuke, AoE Sync Nuke is fantastic. Wild Charge, big damage, right? Zipstrika is pretty fast as well. So yeah, heals, all that stuff. Really, really good. On that same vein, Emboar obviously does not have the AoE Sync Nuke, so not as great as Zipstrika. Also doesn't have guaranteed crit on your Sync Nuke, but has a really, really powerful Sync Nuke, right? Very, very powerful Sync Nuke in terms of just damage wise, right? So that's nice. I mean, it's pretty close to like Empoleon's Sync Nuke or Charizard's, right? Both Charizards, right? So that's nice. Also has some potions, which are cool. But yeah, EX Hilda could be really, really powerful. Moving on. Speaking of Empoleon could probably get into this tier now, right, with the EX. Obviously, big downside for Empoleon. Bullet Beam sucks, right? I mean, it's not good. And the setup is kind of awkward. But once you do get it set up, very, very big damage on the sync move, obviously, which is nice. Moving on. Let's see. What else? Is there anyone else similar? Decidueye. Slightly below average, unfortunately. If we're comparing Empoleon with Decidueye, right? Empoleon does much, much more on the sync nuke than Decidueye, and Decidueye's damage with like Leaf Blade versus Bubble Beam honestly isn't too far, right? So if you're again just comparing like with Empoleon with Decidueye, Empoleon is just like a better Decidueye, right? But water type. Hopefully Grassy Terrain comes around, gets Decidueye much better, but at the moment Decidueye Decidueye's damage numbers are just so bad overall, right? You could run Decidueye as a secondary damage healer, which is nice, but then again, I mean, it's not on the levels of like Pheromosa or whatever, right? In the next tier, but it's not like really bad. But again, it's also not anywhere close to as good as anything in the next tier, unfortunately. Which makes me sad. But oh well, it is what it is. Moving on. Speaking of other things that makes me sad, Olivia, definitely slightly below average. It has a good sync nuke, I guess, but I mean, it's just not as good as like the sync nuke is just not as good as like any of the sync nukers up in the next tier. And Stone Edge damage is just really bad. I might have underestimated how bad Stone Edge was before, but the more I look at it and then like cross compare it to like other units, right? I mean, Stone Edge is like Miss Magius levels of bad, right? I mean, again, and Miss Magius Shadow Ball, not very good, right? And that's with like Sandstorm, and you have to set up like a Sandstorm team for your Lycanroc as well, which is it's just like our Sandstorm unit is just not great. And then on top of that, like you're putting in a lot of effort to make Olivia, at its best. And at its best, it's just Miss Magius with a sync nuke. That's like not even like a crazy sync nuke, right? It's not even like a Emboar levels. It's not too far off though, but like, yeah, even if you granted, okay, it's like as good as Emboar or sync nuke, like, yeah, but like Emboar just does so much more damage on Flare Blitz, and then has potions and it's like all that other stuff. So unfortunately, Lycanroc not in a very good spot right now, sadly. Moving on. Glade is in a very good spot. Fantastic damage, right? Not really great defensively, but very, very good damage, which is good, right? Also Sceptile as well. Fantastic damage, good speed, all that, right? Fantastic speed actually. So Sceptile is very, very good. Obviously, you guys know how powerful these Leaf Storms are. So, here's another one, man. I think I still want to keep Garchomp in this year. I'm not ready to drop Garchomp yet. It's just that other units have just been power creeping Garchomp, and we just haven't gotten like a better Sandstorm unit yet, which is really sad. Oh well. I mean, it's just that like if you look at like Garchomp's, if you just look at Garchomp's numbers in comparison to like anyone else in this tier, it's just really lacking. It just is lacking. What does keep Garchomp up in here, I do think, is great speed and great defenses. But in terms of damage wise, it's not like you if compare Garchomp and Gyarados, like even, right? this it's not close, right? Or with like Zekrom, not close in terms of, again, just damage wise. But again, still good speed, still good bulk. Team comp is not great. Again, if Garchomp does get a better team comp in the future, maybe that helps. Maybe that helps. Which hopefully Garchomp does get a good team comp in the future, because it really needs it. Really needs it. Because it's hanging on the fringes right now. All right. Moving on. Lucario. Below average, I guess. Damage is okay. Definitely a solid damage. Can't really take a hit. And yeah, that's about it, I guess. Moving on, we got Drifblim. Has a solid Sync Nuke. Shadow Ball damage is atrocious though. And if you are running Sync Nuke, you don't want to be using Phantom Force, because Phantom Force 2-turn move. You're missing out on your sync move countdowns, which is you're hindering what makes you the best, right? So Drifblim, yeah, got screwed over by Phantom Force quite a bit. Xatu probably putting in here as well. Great damage on whatchamacallit? On Sword Power, obviously, which is fantastic. Solid defenses too, right? The reason why Xatu's in damage heroes and not in like hybrid or utility is the like utility has it as it's like a chance to flinch and like guaranteed confusion, which is not good. Like you don't use Confuse Ray to like make your opponents confused. You use it because you don't have your stats buffed up yet, and Sword Power just doesn't do that much damage, and you just want to use it move, so you use Confuse Ray. That's why it's in damage healer. It's mostly a damage healer. Moving on. Typhlosion, it could still be in average damage dealers, right? Very, very fast speed, obviously incredible damage on Eruption. I mean, it's a fire type unit. Fire types, water types, electric types, psychic types, they all get, an unfair advantage against other sync pairs for having that, obviously extra terrain / weather 1.5 times multiplier, which is a separate multiplier than passives, right? So, Typhlosion's still good, very fast. Kingdra, probably below average. At max, it does solid damage on its strike meter, although it's very, 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 very hard to achieve. All right, very, very hard to achieve, and incredibly strict team comps, and not very great team comps, unfortunately. Right, and if you take those away, if you want to give it more leeway on team comps, it damage just like drops off a cliff, right? Infernape, probably below average. Can't really take a hit. Good damage on Fire Blast though, right? Good damage on Fire Blast. Can't really take a hit. Alolan Raichu, probably below average. Fantastic Sync Nuke on Inertia, right? Fantastic Sync Nuke. Discharge is just terrible. Discharge is not very good at all. Unfortunately. Very fast, though. Very fast. Very fast. Moving on, we got Haxorus, which is okay, I guess. You could maybe run it as a secondary damage dealer, right? It is pretty slow, though, but you do have, like, 2 move gauge refresh 3s on Outrage, which I guess helps. It does have that issue that Decidueye has, which is you have to, like, waste a turn. It's not even like a wasted turn, but like you have to like spend 1 turn of dealing mediocre damage before you could ramp your damage numbers up, because you do have to get yourself confused first before you could ramp your damage numbers up. Just like Decidueye, you have to use like a turn of Spirit Shackle to restrict your opponent before you can start actually doing damage, right? Which is a bit of a hindrance, but yeah, it's basically like Decidueye, but Dragon type and worse, I guess. Feraligatr, it's definitely in the slightly below average category. A lot of people trash on Feraligatr a lot, and it's mostly because there's just so many better water types, right? So many better water types. It's definitely, of the gridded water type units, probably the worst, right? However, that being said, does Feraligatr being worse than other water types make it objectively bad in of itself? And the answer is no, it doesn't, right? I mean, Olivia, for example, right? Probably the best rock type damage healer in the game. Still not good. Still not good. All right. Being the best, rock type damage healer doesn't move you up a tier or 2 tiers, right? It doesn't make you, you're the best rock type damage. We're going to give you a free pass at the top. No, you're still not great. It's just rock type damage healers overall are just not very good. Fraligator, opposite of that, right? The worst water type damage healer, gridded water type damage healer. But still objectively a good unit, and also got a decent buff. This patch, right? Because Togepi is Fraligator's best support. Togepi saved Fraligator, right? Gives Fraligator crit, accuracy, and then the last bit of attack buffs that Fraligator needs. And yeah, Fraligator is just really not as bad as people think, right? I mean, if we're just comparing these like horizontally, right? Fraligator does so much more damage. The Mega Kicks. Fraligator's Mega Kicks under rain does so much more damage than Olivia Stone Edges, the Decidueye's Leaf Blades, and I think even, let me actually fact check myself here first. Okay, it's close to Jigglypuff's Play Roughs. But still does, I believe, still does more than Jigglypuff's Play Roughs, but like Olivia and Decidueye just destroys these two in damage, right? So, yeah, again, comparatively with the other water types, not very good. But it doesn't make them individually bad, because, again, it's a water type damage healer. You get that incredible advantage from rain. And it has a pretty decent sync nuke, too, with Haymaker. Moving on to the last one, Berg. Probably soluble average as well. Very, very fast. Solid, not grass type. Bug type, damage. And has the, on rolls for special defense debuffs, which is nice. You can run it Sun, decent Sun unit as well. So, anyways, there we go, folks. That's maybe this one, I guess. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, let me know what you guys think of this format instead of the usual striker support tech, right? Because I guess this does give a bit more context to units, but also it does kind of muddy the water in terms of, because sometimes it's hard to say, well, which one's in which, right? Instead of the very clear-cut striker tech support. So yeah, obviously there's no perfect way to do this. There's always upsides of one format, downsides to another format. But again, yeah, let me guys think in the comments down below, I guess. Like, enjoy the videos, we're on channel for some more Mouse content again. Stuff like this, obviously, subjective, right? Again, I don't 100% agree with this tier list, right? I don't think I even agree with 80% of this, but again, just what it is. I prefer to have more people work on it to get, I guess, different perspectives than just me putting up what I think is the best or whatever, right? But yeah, anyways, have fun, folks. Don't get too mad. Don't get too mad. And I'll see you guys in the next one.